Of course, the dramatic images of a wounded Donald Trump are calling another dark period in American history. More than 4 decades ago now, the attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan. President Reagan leaving the Washington Hilton Hotel after giving a speech in March of 1981. You'll remember it was John Hinckley Jr. opening fire, wounding the president, the Secret Service forcing him into his limousine, rushing him to the hospital. Now, more than 4 decades later, new images defining this new and troubling chapter. New York Times photographer Doug Mills, who has documented every president since Ronald Reagan, and he was right near that stage last night, just a few feet, in fact, away from the former president. Mills captured those chilling photos, one appearing to show one of those bullets coming very close to the president's head. I spoke to Doug Mills just before we came on tonight. Doug, thank you for being here tonight. I know you have been photographing presidents since 1983. You were in what's called the buffer area, that small area, just a handful of photographers, I presume 3 or 4 of you. I'm curious, Doug, how close were you to the former president, and describe what happened when you knew this was suddenly taking such a dark turn?
Yeah, David, I was part of that small pool that sits right up in the buffer zone, which is just feet from, and sometimes just inches from the podium. And the moments right before the bullets rang out, I was literally looking up at this huge flag that was up above him while he was speaking. And I thought, okay, I'm going to try and get some pictures of that flag flying. And then he gestured to his right and looked over, and all of a sudden the shots rang out. And it was pop, pop, pop. And I was like, oh, my gosh. And so as I looked up, I kept taking pictures at the same time. And then when I saw him fall behind the podium, I thought, oh, dear God, he's been shot. So I immediately ran over to the left and looked around and tried to get my eye on the president where he was. And by the time, in those split seconds, he was already covered and surrounded by members of the Secret Service who were, blanketing him in case the shots were going. And there was complete chaos around us. I couldn't see him. And, I'm thinking, is he okay? What's happened to him? They were lifting the former president up to his feet. And I thought, oh, God, he's alive. Thank God. And then he started to gesture with his fists and gave that defiant pump. And I thought, oh, wow, he's fired up. And then as he came closer and closer to us, I could see the blood on his ear. And I was like, oh, my gosh, he's been shot in the ear. And then as he was, there was that moment where he was very defiant. And then literally the next second, the look on his face was just complete shock. And, just looking out at what all the crowd is out there, and he's seeing everybody scattering everywhere. So it was just a horrific moment.
And Doug, we know more than 24 hours later now, you've had a chance to study your images. Could you even believe that you captured that one image of what appears to be, one of those bullets so close to the former president's head?
Yeah, David, it was one of those moments. I obviously didn't know it, so we were holding that tent. I was sending my pictures from my Sony camera back to the New York Times, and obviously the first pictures I wanted to send were the ones showing him defiant and coming off and alive. So I sent those, and then it dawned on me, it was like, oh my gosh, I think I was taking pictures while he was, while this whole thing happened, the pop, 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 and when the shots rang out. So I called one of my editors, Jen Mossbacher, and I was like, Jen, I'm sending you images that show him falling after he was hit. And she called me back about 5 minutes, David, and just said, Doug, you won't believe this. And I was like, what? And she said, and I thought I had done something wrong or I'd messed something up. And she said, you actually have an image of the bullet passing behind his head. And I got chills. I was completely stunned.
Really is stunning that you captured it, and I think we've all seen that image now. And Doug, you know the temperature in the country. You've seen it, deeply polarizing times.
I have.
Did you ever fear this?
I never feared this happening at a political event. I've thought about maybe there's a possibility from like a roadside or somebody would shoot at either the president's limousine, and I never, because there's so much security around. So the fact that this guy was able to climb up on that roof and get a shot off is pretty remarkable.
Well, Doug, you've covered presidents for 40 years now, and I wish you many more years covering presidents, and we're just glad you're safe, Doug. Thank you.
Well, thank you, David. I appreciate you having me.
Doug Mills of the New York Times with us tonight, and an extraordinary series of images that will be remembered for many years to come.